Graziers across hundreds of thousands of square kilometres are facing widespread devastation as they watch their livelihoods go underwater. Our reporter Mackenzie Colahan is in Longreach for us this morning. Mackenzie, g'day. We've heard quite a bit about cut roads and stock losses over much of the past week as this water moves through swollen rivers. What are things like where you are this morning?
Good morning, James. Well, it's an anxious wait for a lot of residents in Western Queensland at the moment to see just how bad this disaster can get, because while the water has gone down in some places, it is still rising in others. And the biggest blow has been to the agricultural sector. That's the key industry out here in the bush. The Department of Primary Industries has released some preliminary numbers from their damage surveys, and the numbers are pretty astounding. So far, they're estimating that the number of missing or deceased livestock is more than 105,000. There's also 3,200 kilometres of fences and more than 4,000 kilometres of private roads that have been damaged. And those numbers are only going to get worse as this water recedes and property owners are able to assess the damage. Now, the main concern at the moment, James, is for the little town of Thargomindah, about 1,000 kilometres west of Brisbane. Some residents there had to be evacuated after the makeshift levee that had been built around the town broke its banks and water started coming into town. And there is still some uncertainty about how high the water can get there, given how many records that we have seen tumble over the past week. The fear was that the Baloo River would peak sometime overnight or this morning at about half a metre higher than the 1974 flood record. The town of Thargomindah is actually 500 kilometres south of where we are this morning in Longreach, and that gives you some idea of just how big this flood disaster is. They're estimating that at the moment an area roughly double the size of Victoria is underwater. Roads are cut off. The only way in and out of the worst affected areas is by helicopter, and so aviation fuel is in short supply. Thankfully, the ADF have yesterday brought in a Black Hawk helicopter. It's going to be based out of Blackall. It's got a lift capacity of 3 tonnes, so it's going to be helping to deliver stock. Here in Longreach, the Thompson River is still rising, which is causing some concern. But the biggest concern, James, is that there is more rain on the way. Rain and potentially even thunderstorms is forecast for today and tomorrow, and any significant falls is only going to make this disaster worse.
All right, Mackenzie Colahan, thank you for that. Well, let's get over to Charles now for the rest of the day's news.
Thank you, James. Police will continue their search this morning for an elderly man who remains missing in floodwaters on the New South Wales mid-north coast. The man, who is aged in his 70s, was swept away on the weekend while towing a caravan at Brettite near Gloucester. Police have so far recovered his caravan and SUV. Now, warning, this next story includes some confronting vision. Video has emerged of government-funded security guards kicking and stomping on an Aboriginal man on a Darwin footpath. The Northern Territory is the only state or territory jurisdiction that funds private security to conduct so-called quasi-policing on public streets. Despite an expert review calling for the system to be scrapped, the government has doubled down on the program, with critics now calling for federal intervention. Production at one of Queensland's biggest coal mines has been paused after high levels of carbon monoxide were found. The Anglo-American-owned Moranbah North in central Queensland was evacuated yesterday afternoon. A Resources Health and Safety Queensland spokesperson says all workers are accounted for. The proposed roofed AFL stadium on Hobart's waterfront has been called overbearing and disproportionate by Tasmania's Planning Commission. The stadium is a requirement for the state to have its own AFL team. It found the construction had been significantly underestimated and it has minimal social and community benefits. The Commission's final report is due in September. Myanmar's military government says the death toll following Friday's powerful earthquake has risen to more than 2,000. Aid agencies say their teams on the ground still don't have a true picture of the devastation. The lawyer for French far-right leader Marine Le Pen says she will appeal against her conviction for embezzling European Union funds to finance her National Rally Party. A French court has banned the leader from running for public office for 5 years with immediate effect. That rules her out of the 2027 presidential election.
Let's take a quick look at the global markets on this Tuesday morning. All looking relatively steady this morning. The Dow up nearly 400 points, more than 400 points rather, and the Aussie dollar at 62.5 US cents this morning.
And NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams have given their first press conference since returning to Earth. Their 8-day test flight ended up turning into a 9.5-month stay on the International Space Station. But Williams says they're both now feeling good.
Since we've been back almost 2 weeks now, actually went out and ran 3 miles yesterday, so I will give myself a little pat on the back.